Hi guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about everything that I saw last month, April 2021. You guys know the drill. I'm going to talk about every single thing that I saw last month, and last month I managed to see 18 movies, and that's a pretty good number because I was super busy last month, but I was still able to watch some really good movies, and I'm super excited to talk to you guys about them. And make sure to comment down below what movies you saw last month because I love seeing what everybody saw, and I'm really excited to talk about these movies, and let's get started. So I started the month off by watching the Netflix original Yes Day, and I actually enjoyed this movie. I thought it was pretty cute. It did what it was supposed to do. It wasn't anything outstanding or anything, but I enjoyed it and my family enjoyed it as well, and I love Jennifer Garner. She's literally like the mom of movies. She's a mom in almost every single movie, and I love her personality, and I just really love watching her on screen, and I thought she was excellent here. I also thought the concept of the movie Yes Day was really fun, and I kept wondering what would it be like if I had a yes day. Like, I don't know, I just think the concept itself was really fun. However, I did find Jenna Ortega's character super annoying, and she's playing that trope in movies where like she's a rebellious teenager that wants to like do so many things and the mom doesn't let her do stuff. Happens a lot in movies, but I don't know, I found her especially annoying. I'm not trying to like shame Jenna Ortega. I don't think it was her fault. I just think the way her character was written was super annoying, and maybe that was the point. By the end of it, like, I don't even know if I felt bad for her. I was kind of just like, girl, you kind of did it to yourself. But the other kids were really cute, and I also really liked Edgar Ramirez's chemistry with Jennifer Garner. I guess this movie just had like a lot of tropes that family movies have, but I still think it had a really good ending, and I think it had a good resolution and a nice message. So I enjoyed it, and if you haven't seen it, I mean, you should watch it. It's not one that I'm like recommending to everybody, but if you stumble across it on Netflix, it wouldn't be a bad watch. And then I saw another Netflix original that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, and it's Finding Ohana. This movie was so cute. Again, it's another family movie, and my entire family really enjoyed it. And I'm just gonna get the negatives out of the way. I felt some moments felt kind of out of place and were kind of weird. Like, it was a very emotional sequence, and then there was a little bit of comedy that I felt was off, or vice versa. Like, there was comedy and then there was like a weird emotional scene right between it, but for the most part I really enjoyed it, and I really liked the storyline that this movie had. The movie is about two Brooklyn siblings whose summer is now about going to a rural town in their family's hometown in Hawaii, and it's all about the exploration of their heritage and what it means to be from somewhere but not really know anything about that place. I thought that exploration was really excellent and something that I think a lot of people can take into their own lives, and what I loved about it was that it had a really nice message without trying to go too far, if that makes sense. I did mention that some scenes fell out of place, but I think the message itself, they knew what message they were trying to give, and I think it really worked at the end. And I also really liked the vibe that this movie had. It had very Goonies vibes and like adventure type style, like, because the entire time they're trying to find this treasure because the main girl, she's really into all of that, so it led to a lot of really fun scenes. This is really like the Goonies, but in Hawaii. And I'm gonna say something, and maybe it's a little bit controversial, so I'm sorry, but I've never been the biggest fan of the Goonies. I don't think the movie's bad or anything, but personally, I've never been the biggest fan of the Goonies. And I had a lot of fun with this one, and I don't remember having that much fun with the Goonies. I know a lot of people really like the Goonies. I have to rewatch that movie because honestly, the last time I saw it was like in middle school probably, so it's been a really long time, but the vibes of that one are here, but I genuinely think this one was funner and better, and it also like made me cry at the end, which was surprising. So yeah, really good Netflix original that I recommend, and Netflix hasn't really been pushing this movie, or maybe I'm just not looking in the right places because I hadn't heard anything about this movie, and I think more people should be watching it. So then I saw Godzilla vs. Kong at the movies, and I'm not gonna go too in depth because I have like 2 videos about this already. I'll link them down below. I have my Godzilla vs. Kong review and my Monsterverse ranking, but this movie's fun. It gave me what I wanted. I had a bunch of fun watching it at the movie theater, and it was like such a good experience. Go to the movie theater if you can, because even if you don't like the storyline, I think it's just an epic experience seeing it on the big screen. Then I saw Minority Report, which was so good. So I'm watching Minority Report for another video I'm doing that I'm really excited about, but I'm also happy that I watched it because I am trying to get through Steven Spielberg's filmography, and this one is one of them, but I won't be reviewing it in depth until later on when I get to that point. But anyway, this movie was awesome and such an underrated Steven Spielberg movie. I never hear people talk about it. For at least when people talk about Spielberg, they don't mention this movie. I didn't even know that he directed this movie. I just got the DVD and I put it in, and then I saw it directed by Steven Spielberg. It's such a good thriller because like the entire time you're so interested in what's gonna happen, and the concept is so amazing because I'm not really gonna give anything away because I went into this movie blind, and I think that was the best part. But they're like a pre-crime organization, kind of like know the future, so like if it looks like you're gonna do a crime, they stop you before you commit that crime, so it's like really interesting. But then it obviously involves our main character, and I think everything that happened with the plot was perfect. I genuinely enjoyed myself so much, and Tom Cruise was great in this movie, and like his character was really good. They do a really good job at introducing his background and something that happened in the past, and what I liked about it is that the thing that happened to him in the past had a lot to do with the present and what was happening in the storyline. It wasn't just there to make us sad for him or anything. Like, it genuinely made sense to be introduced, and the plot twists in this movie were so good. Like, they were just so much fun because like you thought you knew something, and then in 5 seconds after they like changed the entire narrative again, and you're like, what? This movie was just awesome. I really liked it. If I had to like nitpick something, sometimes like I felt like it was a bit long. I felt the runtime a little bit, but I think it was still excellent, and I really enjoyed it, and Steven Spielberg did a great job directing this. He's my favorite director. I know he hasn't made the best movies sometimes, but I think when he does something really great, he really just pops off, and he did that in this movie, and that's why I love it so much. Then I rewatched Godzilla, and again, I'm not going to go too in depth because I have a video on this. Godzilla is a pretty great movie. I really like the elements that they have and how dark this movie is, and I actually do think if more of the MonsterVerse was as dark as this movie was, it maybe could have been a little bit better. I'm not saying the MonsterVerse is bad because I enjoy the movies a lot, but I really like how dark toned this movie is, and I wish we could get some more MonsterVerse movies like this. Maybe if they make more in the future, they can go back to this tone, because I think the MonsterVerse really lends itself easily to be such a like a dark and scary world, and I think they've gone the funnier route, which is fine, but I think the tone of this one is so great that if it would have continued, it would have been even better. Then I rewatched Midsummer. I love this movie so much. It's like an experience, and a really crazy one. But it is honestly one of my favorite horror movies, and I don't get tired of it. I think Ari Aster just did such a good job here. I love the acting in this movie. Florence Pugh did such a great job, and I wish it would have gotten a nomination, or that this movie would have been nominated for Best Cinematography, because I think it's such a beautiful looking movie. It's such a dark story and a really disturbing one, but it's such a bright and colorful movie, and I think that irony between how it's presented and how it actually is shows a lot about the plot of the story, a lot about the characters. I think that contrast is really relevant in this movie, like in the characters especially, because they present themselves in one way and they're actually another, or like the cult in the movie. And I think Ari Aster just was really good at putting these little details into the story that upon rewatch I always find something new, and I think that's such a rewarding thing a movie could have, is that it always gives me more. Really love the score of this movie. It's one of my favorite movie scores of all time, and one of the best horror scores. I listen to it all the time, and it's so haunting but so beautiful. I think some characters could have been developed a little bit more, but I always kind of think that this movie is mostly in the perspective of Danny, and Danny doesn't really know these people that well. In my eyes, the movie's in Danny's perspective, and that's why we don't know that much about anything, and that's why sometimes it takes a little bit longer for us to know what's even going on. Really excellent movie. I really like it. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone because I just want to put out like a bunch of trigger warnings. This movie has disturbing images and like a lot of talk about death and grief, but I think if you have the right headspace for it, I think it's a really great movie to watch. Then I saw an awesome David Fincher movie that I had never seen before that I have back here, Panic Room. This movie was so great, and I am actually trying to watch all of David Fincher movies, but this movie could have been 5 stars if it wasn't for the cheesy, abrupt ending, because the way the story ended was good. There's like a scene at the end and it's like so cheesy, and I mean, it doesn't take away that much from the movie, but that's the reason I didn't give this 5 stars. I'm a huge Jodie Foster fan. I love her, and in this movie she's excellent, and I also really like Kristen Stewart, and I loved her relationship with Jodie Foster's character, who was her mom. And I love movies that take place in one location. I think it really lets the director be as creative as possible, because when you're stuck in just one spot and one place, it could easily turn into a boring fest of the same thing happening over and over again, but luckily this didn't happen with this movie. I think David Fincher did a really good job at finding ways to keep the story going and keep the viewer entertained, because I wasn't bored at all with this movie, and I easily could have been if it would have been the same thing over and over again. But I think they did a good job at making the stakes higher, at just different plot lines within this panic room and within this house that I think worked really well. And it had me on the edge of my seat, seriously. Like, there were moments where I just wondered how they were gonna get out of this, and then Jodie Foster just did her thing, and I was like, queen. I do think this movie won't be as rewatchable as other movies, in my opinion. Like, I don't think I would be willing to rewatch this, but for the one time that I did see it, It was really good, and if you guys haven't seen it, I recommend it a lot. Then I saw Kong Skull Island. This is my favorite in the MonsterVerse. You can know more about that in my video, but it's like really good. I love this movie. It's so funny. I love the characters. I love the cast. I love the setting. It's like such a vibe, this movie, and that's why I love it so much. And then I rewatched This Is the Last MonsterVerse movie we're going to talk about today, Godzilla King of the Monsters, and I don't really like this movie, and mostly because of Vera Farmiga's character. I think she's such a bad character, and I just don't understand any of her motivations, and it makes the movie just not good. I just don't really like this movie. I'm not a huge fan of it at all. When I rewatched it, I was like dreading rewatching it because I just think it's so boring, and I don't care about anything in this movie. Like, seriously, I just don't care. Then I saw this really cool documentary on Netflix called Dancing with the Birds, and it wasn't anything serious. It was just a bunch of like videos of birds doing their thing and like dancing and how they call their mating partners and stuff. There were so many birds that I had never seen before in this documentary, and it was like a lot of fun. I watched it with my grandma, and she really enjoyed it because she loves birds. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was just a really fun watch, and I also thought the narration was really funny that went with the dancing of the birds. So if you have any free time, I think this is like under an hour, you should probably pop this on, maybe put it in the background or like pay attention to it, because I think it was pretty cute and I enjoyed myself. The next movie I saw is why David Fincher might be my favorite director of all time and might beat Christopher Nolan, because Christopher Nolan has been in the second place for a long time. I watched Seven, and it was everything I wanted it to be and more. It's one of the best written movies I have ever seen, and the way it was able to introduce the 7 deadly sins in such a creative way was epic, and not just in the way the death scenes happen, but as you guys, if you watch the movie towards the end, how they all wrapped up together, it was brilliant. Like, it's so good. The acting is also great. I love seeing Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, and I loved seeing their banter and like the way they talk to each other. I thought their acting worked really well off each other, and this has one of the best third acts in movie history. Like, so good. Like, I don't even want to talk about it because like I don't want to give it away, and I'm not gonna give it away in this video. Like, I literally finished this movie and I was like, yeah, David Fincher is amazing. I love him so much. This is such a great movie. I think the way it revealed things was also really interesting, and it did things in ways that you didn't think it was gonna do it in. And I also really like how dark this movie is. It kind of reminded me of Gotham because there's so much bad stuff happening in this town. And somebody on Letterboxd actually commented that they're kind of like lessening on it now that they think about it, and I wonder if upon rewatch I'll think that way about this movie, but I don't think so. I think honestly when I rewatch it, I'll catch on to things that I didn't catch on to in the first time, because once you watch a movie for the first time, you rip off that layer, and then when you rewatch it, you can pay more close attention to certain things, and I think that's what will happen with this movie. But this is honestly his best movie in my opinion. I haven't seen them all. I'm still missing Fight Club and The Game, but I don't know if they're gonna beat it or not, but I don't think so. I honestly think Seven is his best movie and one of the best movies ever made. Then I saw another Fincher that I think is also perfect, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Such a good movie and so emotional. I didn't think I was gonna like this movie as much as I did. The reason I think I like this movie so much is because it gives me very much Forrest Gump vibes. I love Forrest Gump and I love that story. I love stories where it's like one person's journey through life, and that's what Forrest Gump is, and that's what The Curious Case of Benjamin Button is. And the thing about this one is that it's such an interesting character, because you have this character that is born old, dies young. Such an interesting character to make a film about. This is a very different movie from Seven and other movies from David Fincher because it's less dark and it's more heartwarming and emotional, and I was so invested in this person's life that the runtime didn't bother me, because it's a really long movie. I think it's like 3 hours or almost 3 hours. No, I think it's like more than 3 hours, but I was so invested in this character's journey that I didn't care how long the movie was. It could have gone on for longer, because I just wanted to figure out what happened next. I also think the visual effects work really well today. Like, I think they still look pretty good, and what they were able to do was excellent. This movie's from 2008, and it honestly looks pretty good for being made in 2008. Like, the effects of the character itself were really good. And I also think this movie had a really great outlook at life. The way I see movies is different lenses at life, and I think when a movie is literally about somebody's journey particularly, we're seeing the world through this character's eyes. It's just so fascinating to me. But when it's a character as interesting as Benjamin Button, I just love movies even more, and that's why I love this movie so much. Then I saw a really random movie on HBO Max that is pretty good, and again, nobody talks about, Presumed Innocent, and it's a Harrison Ford movie. I love Harrison Ford. He's a great actor. I just literally pop on any of his movies. Like, I don't care even if it's bad. Maybe I'll enjoy it a little bit, and this one actually happened to be good. I was just browsing HBO Max and I found this movie and it looked good. It was a court drama and it was a really good court case drama. It had some minor plot conveniences where it was kind of like, it felt kind of far-fetched, where you were like, really that's how it's gonna go down, especially kind of towards the end a little bit. But it was super interesting because the whole time I was like, what actually happened in this case? I think they did a good job not wasting time at the beginning of the movie, and like they literally just went into it really fast, which I enjoyed because I wanted to figure out what was happening along with these characters. And the twist was honestly pretty shocking, and I thought the movie was gonna end and we weren't gonna have a twist, and then the ending happened and I was like, whoa. Harrison Ford was great. I feel like Harrison Ford just plays the same characters over and over again, but he doesn't do a bad job at it, so yeah. I just think this is a pretty good movie, honestly. And if you're just looking for something to watch on HBO Max that you haven't heard about, watch Presumed Innocent. So then I was trying to catch up on some movies that were nominated for the Oscars, and I saw Marini's Black Bottom, and I'm kind of disappointed to say that the movie didn't meet the expectations that I had. I was really excited to watch this movie because a lot of people were saying really great things about it, and although it's not a bad movie, I think the story itself felt incomplete. Like, it kind of ended and I was like, that's really it, that's all we're gonna get from these characters. I think the movie could have definitely been longer because I think we didn't get to spend enough time with these characters and figure out their motivations and stuff. I just didn't like I did not like how this movie ended, and I didn't get how this movie ended. I was like literally confused as to why it ended the way it ended, but I do think the performances were great. Chadwick Boseman gave such a strong performance, and I wish we would have gotten more time to spend time with these characters. Viola Davis was also great. There were 2 standout performances in this movie. So the next movie that I saw was Mank, and this was actually a rewatch because I saw it when it came out, and I originally gave this movie 2.5 stars, and I said that I just didn't really care about these characters. I just didn't like the movie. And I decided to watch it because 1, it was nominated for a bunch of Oscars, and 2, I am watching David Fincher movies, so I'm like, I might as well revisit this one. I gotta say, I enjoyed it a little bit more than I did last time, and I think it's because I already, as an audience member, expected it to be boring. I expected it to be long. I expected it to be all about politics, about the politics during this time, and I got to appreciate it a lot more. I think this movie is really well made and honestly a perfectly directed movie, and the production design of this movie is beautiful. I love how they were able to recreate so much from this era. And after I saw Shadow and Bone, which I was super happy with, I enjoyed it so much, and it was awesome seeing these characters from these books come to life, and I think they did a pretty good job at adapting it. There were some stuff that happened that didn't happen in the books, but that always happens with book to movie, book to TV adaptations, so I can't even complain that much. I will say that some characters felt like they were just there to be there, but they didn't really add much to the story. That was a little disappointing because the characters that happened to, I think, had a lot of potential to be more important in the show. Nonetheless, I was really excited for it, and I think it delivered. I was a huge fan of it. The visuals were amazing, and I think they did a really good job at building this world and letting us see all the places in it, because we got so many different sets, but it didn't feel overwhelming. It felt really nice to see this world that these characters live in. And with that being said, the production design of the show was perfect, so beautiful, and the acting was also really great. The directing was also awesome. There were a few editing choices though that I felt were kind of strange, especially some weird slow-mo shots. I'm not the biggest fan of slow motion in movies, and I felt like here sometimes it was just kind of cringy, honestly, but it didn't happen that many times, so it's fine. It still was awesome, and I recommend all of you guys to watch Shadow and Bone because we need a season 2, so please everybody go watch this so that Netflix gives us a season 2. Then I saw The Trial of the Chicago 7, and I saw this the day of the Oscars because I hadn't seen it and I was super excited to check it out, and I'm so happy that I loved it as much as I did. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It's just because I enjoyed it so much. Like, I can't think off the top of my head one bad thing that I had. It impacted me a lot, and I think that's really important when a movie like this does that, and I think it's really relevant for people to watch this movie today, and I hope all of you guys go ahead and watch it because even if you don't love it as much as I do, I still think it's a really good watch. And I loved the acting, especially from Sacha Baron Cohen, and I think he was so much fun to watch on screen, and along the other cast and crew, like, I just think they were all really great together. I also really loved the score of this movie, and the way it was edited was also really good. It was really fast-paced, which I like, and the directing was pretty average. Like, it wasn't anything crazy or anything, but the writing I thought was really strong, and that's where the movie was really great for me. I wish it would have won Best Editing at the Oscars, but it's fine. I don't even know which one took it, honestly. Like, I can't remember off the top of my head, but for the most part, this movie was really great, and I cried a bunch of times watching it, especially towards the end. It just got chills, and I love it so much. So yeah, this was a great movie. And I ended the month off by watching a classic movie from the 50s, Sabrina. I'm trying to get into watching more old classic movies because I really don't watch any movies from that era or before then. Sabrina was a pretty fun watch, and I actually watched it because my friend, she's a really big Audrey Hepburn fan, and I've been really meaning to watch a bunch of Audrey Hepburn movies because she talks to me about them and I want to like watch them so I can talk about them with her, and I really enjoyed this movie. I thought Audrey was perfect in this role, and I also like the character of Sabrina. I think sometimes though they could have given her a little bit more development than just being there to want a guy, but I mean, it was, I guess, the point of the movie, but that's kind of where I struggle with the movie because I felt the plot, it was okay, it was entertaining for me to see Sabrina go through all of this, but sometimes I feel like they could have given the story a little bit more. I also wasn't that invested in the romance, which is the whole part of the movie, and most of it was because these guys are way older than her. I don't know, I thought it was really cute and enjoyable, but I don't think it's one that I will revisit honestly anytime soon. I do think some scenes were really well directed, and I also like the writing in some scenes, but I just think the movie could have had a little bit more, you know. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I had so much fun talking about what movies I saw last month, and make sure before you leave this video to comment down below what you saw last month. I'd love to check out some of your watches. I always add them to my watch list. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. You guys are all the best. Have an awesome week, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys.